All right, so this picks up after the after the thief situation. So this last wrap up of that is finally he piled the man's shoes and clothes in the road, and he put a rock on top of them. We have to go. He said we have to go. So the boy's not talking to him because he feels like they've killed the man, and essentially by doing the old eye for an eye, he did. And we're going to look more closely at that. Well, we've looked at that scene a little bit, but one of the questions asked was this a good choice for A, survival, and B, moral reasons? And the boy finds it still beyond even as he's become more practical, beyond his moral reasoning to have killed the thief essentially in a slow manner by taking away all the stuff he needs to survive, because the thief was desperate enough to steal from them. So they're not talking for a while, but he realizes also that he needs to talk to his father. And then in 3 days they came to a small port town where they hid the cart in a garage. They didn't see anybody around. They walked through town and down to the docks. They didn't see anyone. As they passed the last of the sad wooden buildings, something whistled past his head and clattered off the street and broke up against the wall of the block building on the other side. He grabbed the boy and fell on top of him and grabbed the cart to pull it to them. It tipped and fell over, spilling the tarp and blankets into the street. In an upper window of the house, he could see a man drawing a bow on them, and he pushed the boy's head down and tried to cover him with his body. He heard the dull flang of the bowstring and felt a sharp, hot pain in his leg. "Oh, you bastard," he said, "you bastard." He clawed the blankets to one side and lunged and grabbed the flare gun and raised up and cocked it and rested his arm on the side of the cart. The boy was clinging to him. The man stepped back into the frame of the window to draw the bow. Again, he fired. When the man stepped back into the frame, he fired. The flare went rocketing up toward the window in a long white arc, and then they could hear the man screaming. He grabbed the boy and pushed him down and dragged the blankets over on top of him. "Don't move." He entered the house through the back door with a flare gun leveled at his waist. The house was stripped to the wall studs. He stepped through the living room. A woman was sitting in the corner holding a man. She'd taken off her coat to cover him. As soon as she saw him, she began to curse him. The flare had burned out in the floor, leaving a patch of white ash, and there was a faint smell of burnt wood in the room. He crossed the room and looked out the window. The woman's eyes followed him, scrawny, lank, gray hair. "Who else is up here?" She didn't answer. He stepped past her and went through the rooms. His leg was bleeding badly. He could feel his trousers sticking to the skin. He went back into the front room. "Where's the bow?" he said. "I don't have it." "Where is it?" "I don't know." "They left you here, didn't they?" "I left myself here." He turned and went limping down the stairs, and he opened the front door and went out into the street backward, watching the house. So what happens here is someone in her group shot him with a bow and arrow. He fired back with the thing. And the woman in there, who is this sort of background character, actually makes more of a sort of moral decision than he does, in the sense that she stays back. She abandons whoever it was that caused this trouble and risked her own life to stay with someone who is going to die. But this is something that the man has basically rejected all the way through. Why waste? He's been very pragmatic. Why waste resources on the man that's struck by lightning? Why help Eli, although they ultimately did, because of the boy, coercing him. And so the man's, whether he thinks his son is divine or not, has moved to full-on an eye for an eye sort of morality. You take my eye, I take yours out. Which, like I said, is not necessarily that of the boy. That's not the view of the boy. So then they swab the wound, and there's actually the first time that he actually curses at the kid. See if you can find the first aid kit. He said the boy didn't move. Get the first aid kit, damn it. Don't just sit there. It's the first time he's lost his temper with the boy. And he apologizes almost immediately. "I'm sorry, I yelled at you." So then they're kind of stuck there. He sews himself up, and they have this conversation. "You have to talk to me," he said. "I'm talking." "Are you sure?" "I'm talking now." "Do you want me to tell you a story?" "No." "Why not?" The boy looked at him and looked away. "Why not?" "Those stories are not true." "They don't have to be true. They're stories." "Yes, but in the stories we're always helping people, and we don't help people." "Why don't you tell me a story?" "I don't want to." "Okay. I don't have any stories to tell." So two things are going on here. One is the boy has fully realized that the fictions the father tells him, which are sort of morality tales about being the good guys and putting themselves as the heroes, are not true because they don't actually help people, which is now a full-blown sort of breach between the way the two look at things. All right, and then the man goes to a separate topic. You could tell me a story about yourself. You already know all the stories about me. You were there. You have stories inside that I don't know about. You mean like dreams? Like dreams are just things that you think about. Yeah, but stories are supposed to be happy. They don't have to be. You always tell happy stories. You don't have any happy ones? They're more like real life. But my stories are not. Your stories are not, no. The man watched him. Real life is pretty bad. What do you think? Well, I think we're still here. A lot of bad things have happened, but we're still here. Yeah. You don't think that's so great? It's okay. So he sees this element of the boy not having his own identity in a sense. If you don't have your own sort of internal story, even some psychologists look at that. Our psychologies like that. We're all writing our own mythology with ourselves as the hero, and the boy doesn't seem to have that. In addition, the boy isn't as adapted to this world as the man would hope or had thought, because he realizes that life is pretty bad in this world that they're in. I'm going to pause here for now. Actually, I'm not going to pause just yet. So then they continue with this conversation. The man sat with his legs stretched out. After a while, the man said, "I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good story. It counts for something." And he's talking about, what is he talking about here? It's something about his life. "It's okay, Papa. I just want to have a little quiet time." "What about dreams? You used to tell me dreams sometimes." "I don't want to talk about anything." "Okay. I don't have good dreams anyway. They're always about something bad happening." "You said it was okay because good dreams are not a good sign." "Maybe. I don't know." Now the man doubts this thing that we've noticed through the whole novel, which is that he doubts his own beliefs about how to survive here. This is important because we're getting to the end where obviously the boy is going to have to survive without him. Losing some faith in what he had been so certain about is kind of okay. The boy is sort of growing up at this point. If he's a metaphor for all children, there's a point at which you start to question your parents' beliefs and start to define your own. And sometimes you can actually make your parents think differently. So in this case, the man's probably starting to think, well, the boy's got nothing. Life is pretty miserable. He should at least have good dreams. He's not so sure about his philosophy anymore. And the boy calls him out on waking up coughing, and he can hear him cough, and he says, "I'm sorry. One time I heard you crying." "I know. So if I shouldn't cry, you shouldn't cry either." That's another one of the man's sort of rules. And the boy is kind of throwing it back at him and pointing out the sort of hypocrisy of it. All of this is part of him, and then he goes on to question whether the man killed the guy with the flare gun, and the father says no, and he says, "Is that the truth?" And he says yes. And he says, "Okay, is that all right?" And he says yes. "I thought you didn't want to talk." "I don't." And so here the boy is even questioning whether the father's actually always telling him the truth. He also then questions whether he's real brave. So he's kind of, at this point, all it's kind of come together, and he's seen his father more for the man he is than the idolized figure that most children have of their parents. There's a point at which you kind of start to see them as people just trying to get through life, that don't know all the answers, that sometimes have to make them up. All right, and then we get to the segment where they camped, and when he lay down, he knew that they could go no further, and that this was the place where he would die. And I'll do a separate analysis of that.